Picture this. You are running. The world is a whirlwind of white. A blizzard so fierce it steals the breath from your lungs and freezes the tears to your cheeks. Each step is a battle, your boots sinking into snow that seems determined to swallow you whole. This is not just a storm. It is the end of a long, desperate road. A 12-year journey that has led you here, to the edge of the world, searching for a ghost. A memory. Promise. You are searching for a man you met when you were just a child. A famed cowboy whose kindness was the only light in a dark memory. They said he vanished into these unforgiving mountains. A man looking to be swallowed by solitude. And now you are about to be swallowed by the storm instead. Your strength gives out. Your legs buckle. You fall, your face hitting the biting snow, and your eyes stare sightless at the burning white sky. Just before the cold takes you completely, a shadow falls over you. A shape in the swirling chaos. A door creaking open, spilling a rectangle of impossible golden light onto the snow. That is the last thing you see. 12 winters ago, the world was a different place. It was a world of dust and sun, of a town fair where the air buzzed with excitement. A little girl with eyes as bright as polished obsidian and braids tied with worn blue ribbons stood mesmerized. He was there. Silas. The sundown rider. His name was whispered with a mixture of awe and fear across 3 territories. He wasn't just a cowboy. He was a legend. His skill with a rope and a horse the stuff of campfire stories. But it was his eyes that held the little girl captive. They were the color of a stormy sky, and they held a sadness so deep it seemed to pull at the air around him. He had just won the day's biggest prize, but he looked like he'd lost the world. While the mayor and other important men clapped him on the back, he saw her, the small girl watching him from behind a wooden barrel. He walked over, his tall frame blocking out the sun. He knelt down, the leather of his chaps creaking. He didn't smile, not really, but the hardness in his face softened. He held out the silver trophy buckle he'd just won. "A prize for the quietest observer," he said, his voice a low rumble like distant thunder. Her small hands took it, the metal cool against her skin. She looked from the buckle to his face and, with all the earnest gravity a child can muster, she made a promise. "When I grow up," she declared, her voice clear and strong, "I'm going to come back and marry you, sundown rider," for the first time. The corner of his mouth twitched into a genuine, fleeting smile. "I'll be waiting," he whispered, a promise he never expected to keep. Her name was Alara, and she was a girl who kept her promises. When she awoke, it was to the scent of pine smoke and brewing coffee. She was wrapped in a thick wool blanket, lying on a cot near a stone hearth where a fire crackled, a defiant heart of warmth against the howling fury of the storm outside. The cabin was small, impeccably clean, and built for one. Every tool had its place. Every plank of wood seemed to have been placed with deliberate care. And in a chair across the room, cleaning a rifle with methodical slowness, sat the ghost she'd been chasing. He was older, of course. The 12 winters had carved new lines into his face and threaded silver into his dark hair. A scar, thin and white, ran from his left ear to the corner of his mouth, a permanent testament to a life she couldn't imagine. But the eyes were the same stormy sky, the same profound sadness. He looked up, and his gaze was heavy, direct. "The storm's not letting up," he said. "It wasn't a question. You were a fool to be out in it." Alara sat up, the blanket pooling around her waist. She felt a tremor of fear, but also something else, a sense of arrival. "I was looking for you," she said, her voice hoarse. Silas, his hands stilled on the rifle. He didn't ask how she knew his name. He didn't have to. His eyes drifted to the small, worn leather pouch she still had clutched in her hand, even in sleep. Slowly he rose and walked over. He was a mountain of a man, solid and silent. He gestured to the pouch. She opened her hand and tipped its contents onto her palm. A tarnished silver trophy buckle. He stared at it, and for a moment, the iron mask of his composure cracked. A flicker of memory, of a sunlit day and an impossible promise, crossed his features. "The little girl," he breathed, the words barely audible over the wind. With the blue ribbons, she nodded, a single painful tear tracing a path down her face. My name is Alara, and I've come back. The days that followed were a quiet dance of healing and rediscovery. The blizzard raged for 3 days, encasing the small cabin in a world of white, a sanctuary sealed off from the rest of humanity. For Alara, it was a time to let the raw edges of her desperate journey soften. For Silas, it was an unwelcome and yet strangely comforting intrusion into a solitude he had cultivated for over a decade. He was a man of few words, his sentences as sparse and functional as the cabin he'd built. Yet his actions spoke volumes. He made her broth. He kept the fire roaring. He would sit for hours, staring into the flames, a silent sentinel in his own home. Alara, in turn, respected his quiet. She didn't press him with questions about where the sundown rider had gone, or how he had gotten the scar that pulled at his lips. Instead, she told him her story in pieces, her voice soft in the firelight. She told him of her family's farm, of the drought that took the crops and the sickness that took her parents. She told him of how their land, the only thing they had left, had been swallowed up by legal papers and fine print she couldn't understand, all orchestrated by the new mayor in the town of Redemption, a man named Thorn. I came back to fight for it, she said, her eyes gleaming with resolve. It's all I have left of them. Silas listened, his expression unreadable, but his hands would tighten on the wooden arms of his chair, his knuckles white. When the storm finally broke, the world outside was pristine and blindingly bright. The silence was absolute. It was a new beginning. Silas began to teach her the ways of the mountain. He showed her how to read tracks in the snow, how to find dry kindling, how to be still and listen to the language of the forest. And she, in turn, brought life back into the silent cabin. She organized his sparse pantry. She hummed old songs while mending her worn clothes. She filled the quiet spaces not with noise, but with a presence, a warmth that Silas hadn't realized he was starving for. One evening, she asked him, "Why did you come here? Why did you leave everything behind?" He was silent for a long time, his gaze fixed on the flames. "Fame is a hungry ghost," he finally said, his voice rough. "It follows you. It reminds you of everything you've lost." He told her then. Not everything, but enough. He spoke of a wife and a daughter, lost to an outlaw's stray bullet, a bullet meant for him, the famous sundown rider. "My fame," he said, the words choked with a grief still raw after all these years, "was the price of their lives. So I buried it. I buried him." Here Alara felt her heart ache for him. She moved from her cot and sat on the floor beside his chair, placing a gentle hand on his arm. She didn't offer empty words of comfort. She just stayed there, sharing his silence, her touch a quiet promise that he was no longer alone in his vigil. In that moment, the old childhood promise began to transform into something new, something real and fragile and powerful, taking root in the shared soil of their sorrow and resilience. They were two broken souls finding solace in the quiet wilderness, a man who had forgotten how to live and a woman who had never given up on fighting for a life. The sanctuary was shattered on a crisp, sunlit afternoon. The sound of approaching horses, alien in their secluded world, sent a ripple of tension through the air. Alara was outside, splitting firewood with a focus Silas had taught her, when 3 riders appeared over the ridge. 2 were rough-looking men with pistols heavy on their hips. The man in the lead, however, was dressed in a fine city coat and hat, his face smooth and his smile predatory. Alara knew him instantly.
Mayor Torne.
He dismounted with an air of ownership, his eyes sweeping over the small homestead before landing on Alara with an unnerving possessiveness. "Well, well," he said, his voice slick with false charm. "Miss Alara, we missed your presence in town. I see you've found some rustic accommodation." Just then, Silas emerged from the cabin, his rifle held loosely in one hand. He didn't aim it. He didn't need to. His presence alone was a barricade. Thorn's eyes narrowed, sizing Silas up as nothing more than a grizzled mountain man. He dismissed him with a sneer. "I am here on official business," Thorn announced, pulling a document from his coat. The deed to the old Miller farm. Your family's plot. As you know, due to unpaid taxes and outstanding debts, it has defaulted to the town council. Which is to say, to me, Ilara's face went pale, but her chin remained high. That debt was settled. My father sent the payment. Thorn chuckled. A cruel, condescending sound. An unfortunate clerical error, I'm afraid. The payment was lost. The land is mine. But I am a benevolent man. He took a step closer to her, his gaze slimy. Perhaps we can come to an arrangement. A woman as resourceful as you shouldn't be living in a shack like this. My home has plenty of room. The implication was vile, clear as glass. He wasn't just taking her land. He was trying to purchase her, too. Before Ilara could voice her disgust, Silas stepped forward, placing himself between her and the mayor. His voice was dangerously low, a growl that rumbled from deep in his chest. She's not for sale, he said, and this is my land. Leave. Thorn's amusement curdled into anger. He looked at Silas with contempt. And who are you? Some washed-up trapper playing protector? This doesn't concern you. He looked back at Ilara. You have 2 days to vacate the Miller property. After that, you'll be trespassing. And I will have you removed. His men shifted, their hands moving closer to their guns. Thorn gave Silas one last dismissive look before mounting his horse. Stay out of this, old man, he spat. You have no idea who you're dealing with. As they rode away, a heavy silence fell. The peace of their mountain sanctuary was gone, replaced by the cold shadow of the world below. Ilara was trembling, not with fear, but with rage. He can't do this. Silas turned to her, and she saw a fire in his stormy eyes she had never seen before. The sad, solitary man was gone. In his place stood the sundown rider. No, Silas said, his voice like flint striking steel. He can't. That night, he told her everything. He told her of his past not as a rodeo star, but as a man who had made his name as a gunslinger, a man who people hired to enforce justice when the law failed. He was faster than anyone, a skill that had brought him money and fame, but had also painted a target on his back, a target that had ultimately claimed his family. I swore I would never pick up a gun for pride or profit again, he said, his hand resting on the worn pistol belt he had pulled from a locked chest. But I will pick it up to defend a promise. To defend our home. Ilara looked at him, at the immense burden he was willing to carry for her. Our home, she repeated softly, the word sealing their bond. The climax was inevitable. It came not at the cabin, but in the heart of redemption. Silas sent word that he would meet Thorn on Main Street at high noon. The whole town gathered, their faces a mixture of fear and a desperate, flickering hope. Mayor Thorn stood in front of the saloon, his 2 hired guns at his sides, a confident smirk on his face. He expected to crush the old hermit and make an example of him. Then Silas appeared at the far end of the street. He walked not like a man hiding from the world, but like a force of nature. Every step was deliberate, his eyes fixed on Thorn. A whisper went through the crowd as they recognized him. It's the sundown rider. Thorn's smirk vanished, replaced by a flicker of genuine fear. The confrontation was not a flurry of bullets. It was a testament to surgical skill. Before Thorn's men could even clear their holsters, 2 shots rang out. Not killing shots. 2 pistols went flying from their hands, their fingers stinging. It was over before it began. Silas disarmed them without spilling a drop of blood. He walked forward until he stood directly in front of the terrified mayor. He didn't draw on the unarmed man. Instead, he held up a piece of paper. It was a receipt, one Ilara's father had been given. A receipt Silas had ridden half the night to retrieve from the county records office, proving the debt was indeed paid. You are a thief and a liar, Silas said, his voice carrying to every silent onlooker. This land is not yours. These people are not your property. He tossed the receipt at Thorn's feet. Humiliated, powerless, and exposed, Thorn scrambled backward, his reign of fear broken in a single moment of quiet, undeniable courage. The townspeople, silent for so long, found their voices. A murmur grew into a cheer. They surrounded Silas and Alara, not as outcasts, but as their champions. In the end, it was not the legend of the sundown rider that saved them. It was the quiet integrity of Silas, the man. Thorn left town that very night, a coward fleeing the community he could no longer control. The fraudulent deed was nullified, and Alara's land was returned to her. But she didn't move to the old farmhouse. Instead, she and Silas worked together, with the help of their new friends from town, to expand the small cabin. It was no longer a hermit's refuge, but a home, a place built not on solitude, but on a shared future. The scar on Silas's face remained, but it no longer looked like a mark of tragedy. It was simply a part of the man she loved, a man who had faced his ghosts to protect her. The sadness in his eyes was replaced by a deep, steady light, a warmth that was reserved only for her. One evening, as they watched the sun set over the mountains, casting the valley in hues of orange and purple, Alara took his hand. He looked down at her, a real, slow smile spreading across his face. The promise made by a little girl with blue ribbons had not been a childish fantasy. It had been a prophecy, a seed of hope planted 12 years ago that had finally, against all odds, blossomed in the wilderness. It was a promise kept not by a famed cowboy, but by a good man, and that was worth more than all the legends in the world. How many times in your own life have you felt lost in a storm, searching for a single light of hope? What promises have you held onto, deep in your heart, waiting for the right moment to see them fulfilled? We all face our own mare thorns, those forces that seek to take what is rightfully ours, be it our land, our dignity, or our dreams. And we all have a choice. We can let the storm swallow us, or we can walk down that dusty street at high noon and stand for what is right, not with violence, but with unshakable courage. The story of Alara and Silas is a reminder that the deepest wounds can heal, that solitude can become sanctuary, and that a single promise can have the power to change the world. If this story of courage and promises kept reminds you of the strength within your own heart, then share your thoughts in the comments below. Let us know what you would fight for. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories that ignite the spirit.